ကြောက်စိမ့်နဲ့ရှင်ကြီးပေါ့နော်ကြောက်စိမ့်နဲ့ရှင်ကြီးကျွန်တော်တို့တွေးလိုက်မယ်အဲကြရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟာဒီဟင်းရွက်ကစုံတရုတ်ပြည်မှာရောင်းတဲ့ဟင်းရွက်ကစုံတဲ့တောင်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဈေးပေါ်အောင်ရောင်းတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့တာဒီကျွန်တော်တို့ကပညာရှင်တွေပြောတာအဲ့လိုမျိုးဖြစ်ရပေါ့နော်တန်ဇာရတွေရှိရက်နဲ့ငတ်နေတဲ့နောက်လူမှုဒုက္ခတွေများတယ်ပဋိပက္ခတွေများတယ်နောက်ဆုံးလက်နက်ကင်ကိစ္စရက်တွေပိုကြာရှည်စေတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဘာလို့လဲဆိုတော့ဒီရနေရတဲ့အကျိုးမြတ်ကကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီအကျိုးမြတ်ရဲ့မူလပိုင်ရှင်ဖြစ်တဲ့ပြည်သူတွေစီကိုမစီးဆင်းမဲနဲ့ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ elite capture လို့ခေါ်တယ် elite capture ဆိုတာကြတော့ဒီအာဏာရှိတဲ့လူတွေလက်နက်ရှိတဲ့လူတွေပေါ့နော်ဒီ trade route ကိုစိုးမိုးတဲ့လူတွေရဲ့ဒီတဦးတစ်ယောက်ချင်းရဲ့ကျိုးစီးပွားကိုပဲရောက်သွားလို့ဆိုတာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့တွေ့ရတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဒီကျွန်တော်တို့ပြည်သူတရက်လုံးရဲ့ဆန္ဒကပါလဲဆိုတော့တန်းနဲ့ချီတဲ့ဒီလူထုကလည်းကျွန်တော်တို့ဟိုလက်မပေါ်မှာဆန္ဒပြပြီးသွားပြီ။နောက်ဒီအစိုးရဝန်ထမ်းတွေကို၌ပုဂ္ဂလိကဝန်ထမ်းတွေပါဝင်ပေါ့နော်။ဒီရန်တရားကိုကျွန်တော်တို့3လလောက်ရပ်ခိုင်းထားပြီးသွားပြီတဲ့မှာဟိုပြောမယ်ဆိုရင်ပေါ့နော်။
Welcome to Insight Myanmar, a word about our podcast. Our interviews unfold through the art of storytelling. While news broadcasts through conventional journalism capture the what of current events, it often misses the deeper narratives of why and how that shape the human experience, the things that fall through the gaps. Storytelling, at its heart, is about connection, about weaving together emotions, perspectives, and histories to create a shared understanding of the world. And so by prioritizing stories, our goal here is to explore the nuances and lived experiences that might otherwise go overlooked. This approach allows us to create a lasting archive of voices and experiences. Stories that remain relevant, resonant, and impactful long after the headlines have moved on. With that in mind, let's take a listen to our next story. We're happy on this episode of Insight Myanmar podcast to welcome back a return guest from 2021. This is Maw Htun. We spoke 4 years ago, shortly after the coup happened, and boy, has a lot taken place since then in the world, in Myanmar, and as we'll hear in his life as well, we're going to be having a discussion that is partly based on his personal journey, which, as you see as the story unfolds, will show where he has come personally since that time, and then looking at what's happening in Myanmar with the crisis with the NUG. And we're very happy to be speaking to you from Stockholm, Sweden, for this conversation. So, Maw Htun, thank you for joining us for another episode, another interview here on Insight Myanmar podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me again, and it's absolutely fantastic to be here and speaking to you again after 4 years. Like you said, a lot had happened.
So take us on that journey.
Yes, I think we might need to go back to the time that we last spoke after I talked with you on Inside Myanmar and sharing my thoughts on coup. I got a chance to join National Unity Government, and I take this opportunity because I think by joining NUG I could do something that I have dreamed my entire life, which is to change the country, to change the system. So I joined NUG and as the Deputy Minister for Electricity and Energy. So we initially, because I was also oriented, so I have to move to Mae Sot. So I stay in Mae Sot for quite a number of months there, and then after 6 months, I joined NUG. I was diagnosed with cancer, and initially my health was okay. So I did not really know, because we were not really allowed mobility in Mae Sot, so we have to stay inside most of the time. And medical access and medical care is also quite impossible. So I thought my symptom in the beginning was just a stomach ache and like loss of appetite. And the funny thing is that I was with my sister. She was a doctor, but even herself, she did not recognize that what is going on inside me. So I had some CDM doctor came to me because I couldn't go to the Thai clinic or any government because I don't have any documents. And then, but everybody think that it was just stomach related, problem, because I used to have that in the past. So everybody, including my doctor's sister, thought that it was just, but I was losing weight gradually and did not really notice that. But it became very severe and worse in somewhere around 2021 December. But still, I was never checked properly. But my health becoming very free, and to the point that I need medical attention. That's where we started thinking as a family of moving to Chiang Mai or to Bangkok with the assistance of foreign Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Sweden. And in by the time I was moved out of Mae Sot, I was already in a very critical condition. I could not even walk like 10 meters, and because there are some formalities that we're required to do in the IOM office in Mae Sot, but I was there, transported there with wheelchair. So the embassy, luckily, I was transported with the arrangement from the embassy, and then I was very lucky. I think, and then by the time I got to Bangkok, thing was so bad. I was hospitalized right after I was in Bangkok, and then I got blood transfusion, for I think 6 or 7 bottles of blood right away before any diagnosis continued, because I was very pale because I was losing a lot of blood, and then I got medical examination like CT scans, colonoscopy, endoscopy, and all these blood tests. And then after the colonoscopy, the doctor, funny thing was the doctor think that I have a tuberculosis in my intestine.
Mm-hmm.
But then, lucky enough that, I have to go through a CT scan. But the CT scan result came, and then the pathologist said it was a tumor, malignant tumor. So that's how I learned in Bangkok that I got cancer. And I have the option of treating in Bangkok, but the embassy insisted that I would be better chance of survival if I treated in Sweden. So that's what we accepted, and then I arrived to Sweden, and the next day I was hospitalized in Sweden, and then because although I have all the medical records with me, the Swedish healthcare system, they start from the beginning, meaning like I have to go through all these examination, colonoscopy, and all these blood tests again. And then, again, the same result. I have these, like tumors and the size of a tennis ball inside my the ascending colon. Because the tumor was very advanced, the doctor cannot immediately decide whether it is beneficial to go an operation on me. So they have a conference, and not even within Sweden, but I think they have a medical network among European doctors network, and then they discuss how to operate me. And after a month, I was operated in Sweden. But before that, the surgeon, they were very blunt and honest about my situation. They said that they cannot guarantee the success of the operation, and they said the only reason that they decided was because I was a male and I'm still very young, relatively young, and so they will take a chance. And just like they said, I was operated like 5 times within 10 days because after the first operation, I have a lot of internal bleeding, and also they could not stop that bleeding, so they have to reopen my abdomen again. So I was on the operating table like for 3 days, just sedated and waiting for the they didn't even like close my abdomen, so they just want to wait till the bloods were not leaking anymore. So because of that, I lost quite a lot of organs, like my large intestine, small intestine, my pancreas was completely gone, and my gallbladder, my spleen, and also some part of my liver, as well as the muscle that partition between my abdomen. And I think that has pretty put a really stress on me, because I wasn't even sure that because during I still remember like during their routine checkup, from the doctor, they do not give me guarantee, like whether, because I was in ICU for about like 2-3 weeks in the ICU, and always monitor. And at one point, I have like 6 pipes, drainage pipe, attached to my body, and also like 4 infusion, like blood, medicines, all these things. So I was basically looked like a robot, like connected with all these cords. But and then after that, I was in the rehabilitation hospital for about a month, and before operation and after operation, about 5 months, I was not able to take any food, like solid food or liquid food. So I was survived only by having the nutritions, and I completely lost my appetite. I couldn't eat like for 6 months. Even if I eat, it was only just to please my mom, you know, like who was my caretaker, like, and my sister, you know, at the time. Just I was eating. I tried to eat because I don't want them to feel like sorry or, you know. But I lost complete appetite, and I never thought that I would be able to eat again because my body was not responding very well. And I was discharged from a rehabilitation hospital like 2 months after the operation. And then a little bit better, but not entirely better. But then I have like high fever again at night. And like after 3 months, after I was cared at home by the township healthcare team. Basically, it is more like a terminal healthcare. You know, like they send the team to people, you know, like who are terminally ill or like a hospice, you know, like care. So that is the healthcare that I was assigned to when I moved out from the hospital. And then I had like high fever episode, and it was not going away. And after that, I found out that I have they do all the blood tests and everything because I have some lymph nodes there. So they thought that it was cancer, you know, like coming back. But then it was not cancer. It was actually tuberculosis. So I had TB, you know, in addition to cancer. I was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and they do a culture and all the tests, and then that tuberculosis happened to be like MDR, you know, like multi, you know, like drug resistant tuberculosis. So I was in the hospital for a month and in a quarantine because here they are very strict about the infectious disease, and I was according to the protocol, you know, like in an airlock room in the hospital, like for a month. And then they do they do all sort of tests, and when they are sure that I have no longer you know, infectious, then they send me home, and then I was on medication for about 1.5 years, and then I was clean from tuberculosis. But then I was never really feel myself. I was basically I told my family I was like a zombie, you know, like walking in the street, you know, like it's and I lost about like 30 kilogram, yeah, from my peak. But now I'm gaining a little bit of weight again for the first time in 3 years. So I'm very happy with the progress. Yeah, so far I think I wouldn't survive, you know, if I were in Thailand or in Myanmar for that sake. So I'm very lucky and to be alive, and yeah, that's just like not a brief, but my health journey after the conversation we had last time.
It sounds like you were very fortunate to be in Mae Sot and have the assistance of the Embassy of Sweden. That's not something everyone can count on there. And so, did you have some kind of relationship with Sweden prior to that had them reach out and provide that support?
Not really. Actually, I would say I have more relationship with the U.S. Embassy, you know, like than the Swedish, you know. I think it was just the Swedish, like I mean, I'm always grateful for the people, you know, who work in the Swedish Embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as Swedish Burma Committee people, you know, like these are the people who has helped me, you know, without knowing me personally, And yeah, it was maybe it was just yeah, like it's more like sometimes it felt more like I'm very predestined, you know, like a predestination, you know. It was already set out, you know, unexpectedly, but I don't have any relationship with the Swedish Embassy.
Sure, and it should be mentioned for those who didn't hear your first interview or aren't familiar with your story that you were, and well, with an asterisk, an elected MP in the 2020 election.
Not an elected, because I also have an election problem. I almost got elected, but I'm shy of like a few thousand votes. But I had filed a complaint because I have that time I have gathered enough hard evidence. You know, what is happening on the ground was not truthful and not really. This nothing to do with the whole election system. It was more to do with some members, not, I wouldn't say members, like in some electorate, you know, like some villagers or some people who are not familiar with the election laws, and out of desperation and out of wanting to cheer for their candidates, some has conducted some things that are against the law, and so I have gathered informations, and so I already submitted to the UEC in that matter, and it's more like a civil lawsuit. It was, but then the whole thing never happened, you know, because of the coup.
Yeah.
And I did not even have a chance to go through the court process, the due process. I was doing that because it's not because I have some like hatred or like I dislike over a certain political parties. It was purely I wanted, you know, like a due process in the whole election system. Because I know that what I've gone through, if I go through with the existing laws and evidence, the court process, it could be a good precedent in the next coming election. So that's why at the time I decided to file a complaint at the UEC. And many people thought that I was filing complaints against NLD, but it was not. It was the other ethnic party. But for the sake of unity and harmony, I never mentioned a political party names or a particular candidate, except in my complaints. You know, I had done a lot of media interview, but I never said any, you know, political party, you know, complicit of, you know, election frauds or crimes.
So going back to your personal journey, I mean, this is such a extraordinary physical process you went through, which I'm sure touched upon every other processes of emotional and psychological and then certainly spiritual as well, which is the next dimension of this, because I understand that there was a spiritual component that came on here that you're just thankful for in sustaining you as you are the very doctors and MOFA individuals that rescued you. So tell us about the spiritual dimension that came into focus.
Yeah, I mean, the spiritual, I was born Christian. I came, and I'm also a Kachin by identity. I think this whole, like the episode, you know, the unfortunate episode of my life has changed the way I see how things are. You know, it's really changed because I I realized how fragile our life is, and also how, at the same time, how valuable, like every moment, like that we have breath. But yeah, in terms of spirituality, I like many people, like people those who go through this kind of cancer or relationship failures or any sort of difficulties. Many people would turn to they tend to be more religious. I think I'm like more opposite. I do not become like more religious. I think in fact I don't even pray like I should as a Christian. But my mom and my sister, everybody else, they do really pray, and I really appreciate that, because I really appreciate their love and prayer. But it's very strange that to me, I do not become like more religious or started doing. Although I have like some spirituality like myself, because it is very difficult to accept like what I have gone through, because the question of like why me, am I why me, what have I done to deserve this, that kind of questions. It's basically existential, examination. I got to realize, how impermanent, things are, and how insignificant, our self. And sometimes I even, contemplate on whether there is self, anymore, like myself, because I'm just like a speck of, dust in this universe. It's very philosophical, but there are also very depressing times. I got very depressed, and I was very helpless, and also very worried, because, and also before this, I was very independent person, like in terms of like my ability, and I feel like I have done everything, like in Myanmar, like I have reached the apex of, what I should. Like I have started a foundation myself, a think tank. In addition to, I became like the country manager, meaning like the head of organization in Myanmar, like from an international think tank. And I was well connected in the politics, I became a candidate, and I was contributing very meaningfully, and I have changed some law, like in the past 10 years, before I enter politics. I make a very concrete, meaningful, and I contributed a lot. So in terms of like Myanmar standard, I'm very kind of like successful, and I have done that, There's not much, in terms of Myanmar available environment, not much further advancement I could go, so it was like that. From that situation to becoming, totally, I was on the hospital, and I couldn't even get myself up, I need help, people, holding me up, to so that I could go to the restroom, and I couldn't sit still like for 10 minutes, I need to, like lie on the bed, and I couldn't go out alone. And even, the place where we stay, like we have like these 3 steps that go to the porch to enter into the building. I couldn't even, without help, like going, stepping on these 3 simple steps. So I was really dependent, from being very independent financially, in terms of relationship, everything, I become completely dependent person. So that shift really has a profound effect on my, I think, the way I see life and the way I see spiritualities. and I think I become more humble because I understand, and like my ability, like how fragile, like we are, and sometimes we are very proud, being, because I'm a very proud person because of my achievement, not because, not without a reason.
Right.
I have all my reasons and evidence, but still, I realize that insignificance of, myself, and that realization really, I think in some way, make me a better person, like in terms of I become more like forgiving, because I don't want to hold any grudge against anyone, and I wanted to be more like mindful of my actions. I don't want anyone to suffer because of what I said, or like because of what I did, like my action. I become more aware of myself, like through this suffering. And so in some sense, I came to realize what is really important in a person's life, and what is a true wealth, what is being rich, and what is a luxury. Many, including myself in the past, like luxury and being rich is like one of our goals. I'm not necessarily, saying these are bad, but yeah, of course these will make you comfortable. But I realize that being rich and being successful is more to do with your, how do you see yourself and accept things, and also like being for me right now, being a luxury means like being able to walk without assistance in a forest, by the lake, by the beach, spending time with your loved ones, having a good cup of coffee in the morning. These are luxury to me, and also being able to spend time with your loved ones. So I think that health episode of my life has really changed my perspective on life. Yeah.
Right. And so then where and how did meditation enter into that?
Yes, I had discovered meditation just very recently, in the beginning of 2025. And it was also out of desperation, because in the beginning of 2025 we had a very diplomatic meeting. I wouldn't say the name because it's not good to say the name. But during that diplomatic meeting with our NUG, a delegation, so it's quite a number of NUG ministers, we gather as a place in the Europe, and then we were able to have a diplomatic meeting, and also ourselves, like we strategize NUG again. And during that meeting, I went there because although I was recently discharged from hospital, so during Christmas and New Year I was in the hospital because I had the last 2024 I had the high fever because of the leftover complication from my surgery, and I was in the hospital like at least 5 times. I spent in the hospital because of high fever. So I was recently discharged, but the meeting was very important, so I went there. But that meeting didn't turn out, like the way I expected. We were met with harsh realities. I feel very uncomfortable. Like my mind was like suffocating, and I'm really angry at the time. And also I'm just recently, discharged from the hospital. And also I have another problem with my surgery because I'm a colorectal, cancer survivor. So I'm affixed with a stoma bag. So I have some wound in my stoma, and that wound, I was seeing the doctors and they're giving me medicine, but it was not healing. It's like almost the whole of 2024 I was bothered and irritated a lot by that wound. So that is the backdrop of before the meeting. And then the meeting psychologically very taxing, and I couldn't bear it, and I was really angry, and my body was also crumbling. So at that night, out of desperation, I thought to myself, like, maybe I need a little bit of more relaxation, like I'll do breathing exercise, like I heard, and I also try a few times, but not very persistent, So maybe I would try the breathing exercise. So before I go to bed, so I was lying. I was not sitting or like doing lotus position or not just relaxing. Like I put a blanket on, and I did not know any techniques. I just know maybe if I focus, like my breathing in and out, maybe my mind would relax, and I'll be able to release, because I heard a little bit of, like that kind of breathing can relax you. So that's my intention. And so I started doing that, and it was very hard, like to concentrate. So what I did was like I have a mental like exercise of like I figure myself like I'm playing like a kite, like there's a roll, like what do you call it? I forget the name in English. Like there's when you have a kite, kite surfing, like you try to like roll the string, So that's my mental like exercise when I'm breathing, because I couldn't concentrate my mind. That's what I'm doing. So when I'm doing that, and my mind become like very still, and at one point I feel myself like I'm observing myself like a third person, like inside a room, like I'm seeing, like this is like my mind, but I'm like become like a third person, and I have that experience, and then after that, my mind become like completely still. I have never have that kind of stillness or that kind of feeling before. So, but that feeling was very soft, very delicate, and it's similar to like when you try to fold your clothes, and all the clothes are neatly folded, and like you put it on the shelf. That kind of like neatness, like softness, like I feel that, and I was really happy, because that at that moment I really felt the peace and the stillness, that I had never experienced, in my life before, and I was really shocked, I did not know. So, but I really like it. So I continue with that, and during that time I felt like it was so peaceful. Like I did not even feel like I'm breathing anymore. Like I'm that like still and like complete, silence. So it took me about like 1.5 hours that night, and in addition to that, I had like one very strange phenomenon in my body. Like when I'm doing that, I had these because many cancer patients would know that like when we go through like a CT scan, we were injected with like contrast, like it's a color contrast, like to get a better pictures, like in the system. So that contrast was a fluid, like, so when we were injected with fluid, like what we felt was like from our throat all the way down to the lower part of our body, we have the sensation like a warm, a hot, like a liquid or like that spread, That's the sensation everybody is very familiar if you're a cancer patient. So during meditation, I also have that kind of, like a kind of like hot, warm, like a flow was moving in my body, and I feel it, and it went all the way down to my toe, and it's go, it's round on my abdomen. It was very weird, but at the same time very healing, very warm. So I really noticed that, but I do not have any, being afraid because of this. Nothing. It was more like it's just a little bit weird, I never had this kind of sensation before, and that was my. And then I told my friend, who accompanied me, and then he has a little bit of experience on meditation, and he told me that about some Bali words, like that has been going on, but I have no idea because Bali is still very far away from me, and I have no idea. And then that morning I had another a colleague from NUG, a senior minister, like his wife. She also read a lot of like Dhamma and like all these sermons. So my friends, told her about that, and then she explained to me about what I went through, like you in the stages, but I still have no idea, like I'm just sharing, like what happened, like at that night, and that's like since then, I become very much, attached to like meditation. I feel like whenever I do like meditation, I get energized, I get more energy, and also I have like mental clarity. I'm visibly more like able to concentrate more, and I'm not like easily irritated, like after that, so I keep on doing that, and then I wanted to observe, like what could that meditation do to my body. So I keep on doing that every day, like before I go to bed, on the bed I do that, and every morning I wake up, I try to find that, like breathing, and then a month after, I keep practicing, like meditation, when I check my stoma back, my wound was healed. That was like a miracle, because I was seeing the dermatologist, like the specialist, and they give me, like all these, you do that, but it does not help. But for a month after I do meditation, and it was healed. So I figure, that meditations, may have some really, like healing effect. So I keep on doing that. Not only that, I have other, like the kind of improvement, because like people like me, we have struggled with our like a bowel, like discharge, like we have sort of like diarrhea, and because of that, like I could not sleep very well. Like I have to wake up like every night 2 or 3 times, and after, like I do meditation, regularly, I feel like my bowel and all these, stool movement as well as the stool discharge become like normal again for the first time in 3 years. So yeah, I think that is, fantastic, for me. This is, I keep on doing that, and then I also, like it's been like, now it's been like 5 months. I have no high fever anymore. Because some infection inside my body must have been healed. Because in the last year, it was like every month, I was on antibiotic. The medical team, like the township medical team, have to come to my house, like to give antibiotic like 3 times a day, like in the middle of the night, in the morning, in the afternoon. But now, like for 5 months, I don't have like high fever, and I have also this weight problem because I also want my stoma reversal operation. I wanted to live a normal, but the doctor, they don't want to operate me, unless I gain some weight. So yeah, this 5 months, I have gained like 4 kilo, 5 kilos, the first time in 3 years. So I think I know that meditation, I have never been to any retreat or vipassana or anything. But even what I know and what I'm comfortable, what I'm doing, these 5 months, I'm very impressed, and this has really touched me. Like I become myself again, and I don't have problem, because in the past, like if I go hiking or if I do any physical activities, I have to rest like the whole day, like the next day. But now I'm functioning more like a normal person. Yeah. So
Do you do any technique or what? Meditation means so many things, and sometimes people just use the word meditation to mean like a reflection or a walk or a silence or something. You described your initial experience of just laying down, and it sounds like observing the breath and anapana that just came naturally. But then as you've developed into what you're calling quote unquote meditation since then, what do you mean by that? I understand you haven't been to any retreats or courses, but is there some kind of technique you're following or you're inventing, or is it completely freestyle, or what does the meditation look like to you?
Yeah, it's to me it is because the first night I met meditation, I felt like peace, quietness, like tranquility, and really, that kind of like heat, moving around my body and these kind of things, and also, so what I try to do is like, I have never been to any retreat or like any teacher, so I only hear, like some people said, like you need to, focus on your nostril, like the breathe in, breathe out. Even that in the beginning, it was so hard for me. I couldn't do it. So I have to do my own mental picture of like I am, like pulling the rope, like that way I can focus on my breathing. So, but as I keep on breathing, I become more, I find my own way. Like I was able to kind of like, not entirely on my nostril, but I was able to focus more on my breathe in and breathe out. So if I do it long enough, I got into a stage where, like everything become very quiet. Everything become like very quiet down. So I normally breathe until I reach that point. So if I become like, there is like one click, of if I focus more, and then at one point I got into like that kind of stage, where my mind is complete silence. I am like more like the stage I'm in is not. I know the difference. I can feel it. So I normally when I breathe, I normally try to like focus more until I get to that stillness or the complete mental silence that I experience. So that's how I try to keep my breathing or meditation. I normally call it breathing exercise because I wouldn't know what kind of technique I am doing. But
so it's just the observation of breath?
Yeah, just the observation of breath. And if I am, like focused enough, and then at one point I know that, I reached that kind of like a silent stage, that I know, I have entered into that silent state. So, and then I keep on observing. And after that stage, sometime I have like experience of some like the sensation. I can feel it, sometime, on my toes, on my legs, and sometimes my arms, and but that is not every time, but oftentimes.
So sometimes the awareness and observation of breath leads naturally to a feeling of sensation throughout the body.
Yeah.
It sounds like Vipassana.
Yeah, it's like I feel like sometimes after I stop breathing, I can still feel like heat in my chest.
You can feel heat in your chest.
Yeah. I think there is some kind of like heat, emitting. No, not a normal body heat, I can feel it because that's just I don't know, but sometimes when I do that section, I have these the heat like left in my chest and in my back as well. That's not body heat,
What is it?
It's like normal body heat, It's just like increase, like it's different kind of heat. I can feel it,
Did any of your Buddhist friends ever introduce you to the word parami? Do you know the word parami?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So this, for listeners who don't know, parami is a Pali word, and I guess a simple way to describe it is that past good acts, past wholesome acts that you've done in previous lifetimes, if one believes in that they become activated in present lifetimes. And so I think an experienced meditator or Buddhist, when hearing your story about just lying down and doing breath meditation and having that experience, I think the obvious explanation that many would go to is that you had extraordinary experiences with meditation in previous lifetimes, and so when it took you at this moment to reactivate your spiritual potentiality, so to speak, your spiritual potential, that your parami is like your spiritual potential in reserves, that this then accessed that and allowed you to progress in the way that you did. We can take the word parami to the rulership of the current and previous Burmese military junta and past kings. The paramis were all about their spiritual mandate, their Buddhist mandate to have a white elephant or capture Mahamuni or expand their territory or whatever it was they did. The belief behind parami is this sense that you are not able to accomplish something unless you have the spiritual or potential magnitude behind it. And by doing it, you therefore show that you have it. By being defeated or not doing it, you therefore show that you're depleted. And so this is a spiritual term that then takes on, I would say, manipulative political connotations in terms of how one engages in the world. But just moving that aside for a moment, in the purely spiritual sense, I think people used to say that to me all the time when they would look at an American, didn't know a single Buddhist in my life for, first couple decades of my life, who somehow not only found Buddhist meditation, but ended up in Burma before the transition, living there. I'd get from Burmese Buddhists all the time, God, you must have extraordinary paramis to have, come from that environment to find this. But going back to your situation, I think that having that experience of the first time you're doing meditation and having it just kind of explode over you, this the uniqueness of that, the unusual quality of that. I think a meditator or a Buddhist, the explanation they'd give to it right away is this sense that you have developed these spiritual faculties in a previous lifetime, and the moment that you took one step towards that path again in this lifetime, that then reactivated all the work you'd done before. That's one explanation and interpretation that comes from that context. I wonder what you think about it, because you're coming from a Kachin Christian background. You're doing this, certainly not for religious, barely for spiritual reasons, really for survival and health. But then it sets you on.
It's embarrassing, to share my experience because I was doing, just for the pure sake of my health, and I was doing a scientific observation. I'm breathing, I'm doing this exercise, and will my health improve? And I have a metrics, like that I shared earlier. So I have a few, miracles happen. So I was very happy, and my family, the whole family was also happy, because I was visibly, better, in these 5 months. So yeah, but I feel like in Myanmar, we say anare, sharing my experience, because I wasn't doing it for the religious reason.
Just share what that means for those who don't know.
Yeah, anare is I feel embarrassed, or in English, I'm not using things that are like things that are very sacred and very holy, for some group of people. And I feel a little bit at one point embarrassed, to share my experience, because I do not call myself Buddhist, and I'm doing this for just to improve my mental, health.
To survive.
To survive, basically, I don't want the suffering, that I had, and I'm using this as like a survival tool,
Sure.
So comparing that to other people who are, who has a very noble wish of, enlightenment, attachment, free. So I was a little bit embarrassed, but to me, this is very scientific, and I have experienced the improvement in my physical and mental well-being. And it was also very accidental, the way I find it. And my explanation would be, I think I was able to experience that kind of experience because I have no desire, like a religious desire. I just practice this, not because I want something, or after life, or I want some merits, or I don't have that kind of thinking, So when I'm doing that, I'm really focusing on my present moment. I'm only I'm trying to understand myself better, and I'm trying to know my body better, because when I do breathe, I feel like I know my body better, and I become more aware of myself, I become more aware of my feelings, like when I'm angry, and when I'm happy, when I am impatient, and things that used to bother me, I can analyze which bother me. Is it which kind of the way, let's say I got treated badly, and then I was able to analyze which feeling bother me. So I was able to kind of cope with that kind of feeling better, and I'm becoming more forgiving to myself. I become mentally, it's better for me, and especially the kind of the line of work that we're doing is very in Myanmar, like they would call it very akudo myare, you know. So, but in that kind of situation, I was able to I like control myself better, and I'm not easily agitated, you know. When I'm insulted, you know, like when I'm angry, yeah, I'm still human, you know. I got angry and I'm sad, but I quickly realized, you know, like what these feelings are doing to me, and I'm able to move on quicker than before, and not dwell on these torturing, you know, mental state.
It's interesting. On one side, you talked about your anabare, your hesitation or discomfort with moving into a space that other people have dedicated their lives to the practice, and you feel a bit uncomfortable. And when it comes to that, I would say, you know, when I was at the meditation center, often teachers and advanced meditators would remark how amazing it was that they could be at this practice for decades of their life, and someone could walk in off the street and after a couple of days light up in ways that they could never reach. And there's nothing wrong or jealous or envious about that. It was just of the nature of understanding past lives. And if one believes in that, but understanding that we have come in with different potentialities, different baskets we can tap into, different challenges we have to face, and that it's on the surface level it might seem that, you know, someone doing it 30 years should be a bit more advanced than someone who's just done it for a few days. And certainly the technique and the expertise is there, but the potentiality of where one could reach, you know, that's not dictated by how long we've practiced. But then there's another component to this. So there's one component that you're kind of stepping accidentally, really, and unintentionally into a Buddhist spiritual space that others are dedicated to in ways you don't have background. But the other way of looking at this is you're coming from a Kachin Christian background and looking for survival, as we say, not even mental balance, as some people do, not even, you know, mind-body connection, but really just honest to God survival. And through that survival, it opens up these doors of spiritual possibilities, and the spiritual possibilities have these byproducts of, you know, being more calm, being detached, being able to manage your emotions easier. All of those are byproducts of the real spiritual dimensions of moving towards the concept of liberation in the Buddhist sense, one would say. And so have you figured out where that places you, you know, coming from where all these things come with identity and religion and spirituality and just physical and mental health? Are you aware of what space you're now occupying and how you see yourself fitting in here?
Yes, I think that also connect to my suffering, you know, in the last 3 years, what I've gone through and what these experience has molded me. Now, you know, in conjunction with these newfound discovery, I feel myself like I'm more free. Like I'm able to see things not in a prefix, you know, identities, you know, because I was born as a Kachin, you know, and become, you know, automatically like Christians, and I have many identities, you know, like on the surface level. I started to see these identity as like, is like in social science we used to call this like social construct. You know, at the time I did not really fully grasp the idea of the illusion of these identities. Now I started to see more these identity as like illusion, like social construct. These are not permanent things, you know. People made up, you know. If I look through myself, I am just an atom, you know, like in a physics, you know, like material physics sense, you know, like I am like filled with like quantum, you know, like spark, and you know, like the atoms, you know. So like everybody is, like we are creative of, like atoms, So I think it's a little bit weird. I feel myself like more connected to the universe. I with the nature, the universe, as well as in the atomic level. I think we have like connection, these kind of connection. So I'm able to understand that more. So I think when I do things, I'm not dragged by these identities, like anymore. I feel myself more like human. Even as human, at one point, like when we die, we decompose, like we become like atom again.
Yeah.
So I think I grasped that kind of, continuity, like with the universe more. So like things that we learn in education, like the social construct of race, like identities, and sometimes we fight along these identities, and I started to see how stupid it is, like to really focus on, like these identity instead of the real things, and real, like because I'm in a politics, so that's a direct, like application, on the way I see politics, what kind of policy, like we should strive for, like in Myanmar, for instance, we're talking a lot about federal democracy, and we have a lot of grievances, like Burma, Burmese chauvinism, or whatever, but you look at like if we focus too much on these kind of race, religion, and then you miss the whole point of politics of making life better for people regardless of who they are, because I do not choose to be Kachin, I was born into that. So when we are making a new system, a new country, I mean, like baby do not choose, because if they have if they got a choice, would they choose, like Burma? No, they would choose the womb of the Bill Gates, or like some billionaires, like womb. So that means like when we are making a political system or creating a state, we should like really construct a system that can accommodate regardless of where that baby was born into, like that baby should have equal rights and equal environment, like to develop himself, herself. So yeah, I mean that become more like a profound and more evidence, so but it does not mean that I have discredit or like I have sidelined the grievances of the ethnic minorities or the people. I myself I fully accommodate, like I understand, but what I'm saying is that going forward, in politics, we don't want what we suffer, like passing on to the next generation. So when we are creating a system, because right now, even in this revolutionary sense, like it should be, pretty evidence that, it does not matter like in Kachin or in Christian, there are many, like Christians and Kachin that sideline with Mae Sot and who, like glorify Mae Sot and his evil acts. And at the same time, there are many Buddhists, Burma, like who are fiercely against Mae Sot and, like creating a better system. It should be evidence that, we should, really look past these, social constructs and go straight to the real things, so that we have more, like purposeful, meaningful change ahead of us.
It's really interesting because it's recalling me back to conversations we had on this podcast in 2020 at the Black Lives Matter protest in United States, where we were talking with a number of Buddhists about identity at that time, and looking at and from your situation, you're coming from this kind of metaphysical, experiential understanding of what identity is, and then looking at where that comes in from a policy and governmental standpoint, very technical and policy oriented. It's hard to know where these things exactly line up, and to just play out the kind of different dimensions of what's at stake here. On one hand, there is this deep spiritual truth and existential truth that one that can be metaphysical, or one can reach through spiritual ways as well, where you do realize the oneness of all things, and you do realize that these whole identities we construct for ourselves beyond race and religion and skin color of I'm a type of person who likes this or believes in this, or I live my life this way. These are all different, one sort of different construct or another that we put up to align ourselves with one set of people and separate ourselves with another. And there is this profound truth that could come when you realize the artificiality of all this, and the oneness of how we're all connected, that is liberating. But the implications of that can sometimes lead in wrong directions. There are various Western Buddhists who have started to put forth an ideology that there's no such thing as racism because race doesn't exist. So why would you try, as a Buddhist who believes in karma and believes in this kind of oneness of all thing and race and identity breaking down, if this is what you really believe, how could you also believe in racism? And if you don't believe in racism, why would you be involved in anti-racism? You would actually be involved in against the existence of the concept of racism, because the concept of racism is further solidifying people in certain kind of containers. And yet there's any direction you go, there's this extreme you could go, because you could certainly go on that extreme of identity politics and identity constructs, where one is just getting further siloed in I'm this and I'm not that, I'm that and I'm not this. However that's defined, that can become an unbreakable, unshakable truth that really does go against, I think, some of the tenets of Buddhist thinking of anatta and lack of self, lack of ego, constant change. It does go against some of these, and yet we also can't take this metaphysical truth and insert it into our daily lived experience of truths and say, oh no, there's no marginalized people because marginalization doesn't exist. This is the tricky part of this conundrum of how you bring in, how you integrate these spiritual or metaphysical truths and insights into policy. And I always go back to the example of U Nu, which was, I see U Nu as an absolutely, dedicated, heartfelt, genuine Buddhist meditator who tried to live by the very ideals that he professed, and yet not a very good statesman or policymaker. One doesn't necessarily lead to the other. Look at Gandhi and the ideals that Gandhi lived his life by, and certainly some of the policies he was advocating for India were not really the best and the most well-founded. And so this is all a backdrop and a lead up to the position you find yourself in, because you're now at this nexus of, having, through your own personal ordeals and the spiritual path you found, you've uncovered these extraordinary truths that are suggesting this path of peace forward that get us outside of constant identity politics in Burma. And I mean, if you think they're bad in America, like look at Burma, just how hard it is to bring different communities, ethnic, religious, geographic communities to the table, have them talk, have them share, have them hold contrasting truths and acknowledge those, how difficult that is. So on one hand, what you present can give some optimism in trying to break those constructs down, see the shared humanity, and realize how we're all in this together, and let's try to make a world where we all live together. And yet it can also run the risk and run the danger of as per these previous examples that I shared, denying the existence of marginalization happening, because if there's no, if all these constructs are artificially formed, then the discrimination also goes away. That also can't exist. So, how do you do this very delicate job of bringing these profound spiritual insights you've had into your job with policy making, country, the birth of this new country and society that wants to be formed, where you're able to take the best of these insights and bringing people together, but you're able to acknowledge the marginalization that has taken place and continues to take place, and yet not get endlessly caught in these loops of victimization and marginalization on the other hands.
When I say social construct, but they have like real life implications and consequences, of those, construct even people make, and but this is the truth that like every human, like these oneness, and like we are connected, at the atomic, like level, and if you really look beyond our identities, there are common grounds, like common goods, like that we should strive for. But I think the balance here is like how I think the balance here would be like we need to create more space for listening, like sometimes because I feel like I live in both worlds. I grew up in Yangon as a Kachin, so I knew enough of like what a normal Burmese like would think, and also as a Kachin myself, I have experience like some discriminations, but not the way that a Kachin in Kachin state would have faced, because I have lived in a different political system in Yangon, because in Yangon security is much better, and then I speak also like fluent Burmese, like my experience as a Kachin in Yangon would be different from a Kachin like living in Kachin. So I think like acknowledging that kind of differences is the first step, and then after that like we could ask ourselves a very important question of like what do we want as an end goal. Like, why do we want, like a Kachin to be a prime minister of Kachin state, and why do we want a Shan to be the prime minister of like Shan state, and then we will realize that it was the system like that has in place that has hindered these kind of arrangement, and then we will be able to fix that kind of system. So first we need to listen and acknowledge like there are differences in suffering. We can just like rule out that as insignificant, or like this can be true because there's no such thing as identities, but I think there's a need for realization. Like we wanted to be like let's just say let's just take out all these identity like Kachin, Pama. What do we want as a human being, as a citizen in Myanmar? I think we want to be treated equally, and we wanted to preserve our language, we wanted to preserve our culture, and we wanted to practice the religion, our faith, like freely. So how do we get to, like that kind of, situation or system? How do we build that system? So I think we need to start from the end goal. So if we can unpack with that, and then we'll be able to document, the grievances, like in a more concrete way. So if we say that, then essentially, like everybody cannot deny that, like we want such a system. Our next generation to be free from oppression, free from coercion, like economic opportunities, like the state budget, like should be fairly distributed, like the healthcare, everything. So if we start from that, then if we unpack, we will be able to document the grievances of the like minority. So we need to acknowledge that like in the past system has not been very fair. For instance, in Myanmar, like I'm responsible for electricity and energy, and we all know that if we look at the electricity system, it was so unfair. Even right now, like most of our CDM staff, like and they knew that like we should go federal system, because the majority of production, like the hydro, like power and the resources, they are all located in the ethnic area, a minority area, non-Burma, like let's say for the sake of but then the majority of consumption and electricity grid is only concentrated in the Burma area. So by just looking at that electricity distribution map and the system, you clearly know that this system does not serve everyone. I'm not saying like discrimination. This system does not serve everyone. So how do we make a system like that serve everyone? So I think that realization is needed. If we can start from this kind of like backward, like walking from, what is our end goal, like in a political term, then, like we'll be able to also dispel some of these, extreme race-oriented, like politics. But at the same time acknowledging, like there is systemic, discrimination in that attributed to, like based on race or where a person was born, I would say, or like a language, names, like things like that. So yeah, I think because I came from a policy, like oriented, work, and all my life I've been working on that policy. So I try to think that problem more as like what kind of policy or like systems would accommodate these grievances, addressing the grievances. It's a very, I think the efforts like that that every stakeholders like need to work on, continue like working on. I think right now we are getting there, because you see the indiscriminate bombing of like Myanmar to Burma places, even they even like targeted even harder like to the Burma area. So then people should realize that this system is evil to anyone who is against them, regardless of Burma or Kachin or Mon. So what we need to tackle is these like authoritarians, like dictator and cronyism, like elite, like that has benefit only a handful of people and a group of people that are building a state within a state. So if we were able to see that, and then we'll be able to build a better system, that discriminate based on like race or where you were born. I don't think it's going to be easy, but at least, like we will have a very solid foundation that is non-discriminatory, because humans are always, if you are unchecked, humans tend to be always evil. But then if we have a foundation, that guarantee every children, and equal rights and equal opportunities, I think we can start from there. I don't think it's going to be easy, because I don't expect everyone to have the same experience, all the, what I have gone through, because I know that, how boiling it is, when you are enticed with race and religion, people get easily boiled in anger, or, jealous, or like subjugation, you want to, always think of your race is superior to another, that's the human nature. But it's not going to be easy. But if we want a good system, we need to see beyond, race and religion, that is beneficial and equitable for everyone.
So moving into that political field, and as an NUG minister, and now stepping back into now that your health has improved, being able to step back into your involvement with NUG, let's shift more to that topic, as you've been doing in your last response and reflection. And I'd like to take a moment just to reflect on the National Unity Government itself, 5 years on. This is something that was bandied together in an emergency crisis situation to be able to be the people's voice and to what was left of the rightful elected government to be able to lead, and now we're 5 years on. NUG is it's not in a physical place; it's scattered around the world, and certainly has faced any number of challenges that I think you could look at. If this had happened as a thought experiment in other countries around the world, I don't know to what extent you'd have any community be able to do as well as what we've seen with Myanmar. And yet at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that increasingly on, the NUG has taken a fair bit of criticism for any number of directions that we could go in some of the dissatisfaction and disappointment that people have had in their direction, and kind of, and basically, just to put it simply, knowing what they're about, what is it they're actually trying to do, and how are they doing it. And it seems like there has been this challenge of faith and confidence in them. And so I want to give you a chance, just as a preliminary general introduction to your thoughts on NUG. Where do you think the NUG is at? What do you think they're doing right? What are some things you think they need to improve on, and where do they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm myself, clearly I have a conflict of interest, because I'm from, I'm working together inside NUG, but I'll try to be as objective as possible, because I think to assess NUG we need to have standards, that we use, but we need to understand that NUG is not a full-fledged government. We started as a political defiance, movement, but at the same time we assert ourselves as legitimate government, that are elected by the people, and still it is. If you look at the legal, both legal and popular, support, the continuous, support to NUG is still evidence in many metrics, like the way we funded ourselves, because it has always been self-funded, because of the people's contribution, people who are working as, like housemaids, construction workers, or a computer, like engineer, doctors, inside and outside, diaspora inside the country. And you'll be surprised, if you look at, analyze the kind of funding, that we receive, the lion's share come from inside Myanmar.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow, that's extraordinary.
That's very,
That's
every funding, drive or campaign, that is very clear. And also so I think that's why we were able to sustain, until today, because I still vividly remember, the time we had our first podcast. After that, there are many pundit and, policy analysts who are predicting that the revolution will fizzle down within 3 months and 6 months, but that had never happened.
Right.
And because of the increase, brutalities and the killing of the junta, finally, NUG has declared the people resistant, a war against junta. And since then, and the NUG also has founded the People Defense Forces. And also we have subsequent, local defense forces, which are not, some are related to NUG, but some of them are independent and has sprang up, So, like I said, NUG is not a full, fledged government, but we are government under a very extreme, resource constrained situation, both in terms of the human resources and financial resources. But I think we made it work, and because of I think we got criticized a lot, because I think people has expected a lot, from us, and rightly so, because this is the people's government. But the situation, was not that, straightforward. Although, we started with nothing. Now we have come to a place where we have more full-fledged army that are maturing, better hardened, and they started, showing their worth. And also, I think if you look at the whole picture of the country, looking at Rakhine, Northern Shan, in Sakai, in Karenni, you could not rule out these, progress made by the ethnic army would have been possible in the void of NUG. You wouldn't rule out, if you have all these, look from the, perspective, because historically, we, the revolutionary side has never captured this area of, land and control since the independence. Even in the 90, go back to Myanmar history, if you have read enough, like in the era of 1950s, the territories, controlled by the revolutionary has never been this big. I think this wouldn't happen if NUG was not functioning or rallying the public support, against junta in every possible space, like in the diplomat, economic, popular support, I used to point out that, in social science or political science, we cannot work like a laboratory control situation, because we are social science. We work with people. There is no control group. But we have the opportunity in the Northern Shan. If you look at the better situation in Northern Shan in 2009, the Kokan, were drove out of, Shan by Me Online, and then Kokan tried to, come back in 2016-17. But what happened? They do not succeed. But in 2023, they have become, launched the 1027, and it become successful, and they have controlled a large swath of area that they have never ever controlled in their previous time. So these are the kind of mounting evidence, like the indirect, impacts of, NUG having as a central rallying point of this revolution. So you can't judge NUG just using a yardstick, like that you would use in a full-fledged government. But you also have to look from the revolutionary, like perspective. NUG has become like a beacon of hope and a beacon of, like rallying point against junta. I think in that sense, we have been pretty effective, because we started from nothing, and then now we have like NUG directly control area and in Zagai, and we have our like revenue taxation, has been, like that government, function has been going on quite well, and because of that, you see the increase, airstrike to the schools, monasteries, and the hospitals. Why? Because they knew that NUG mechanism is working, and they want to demoralize the people, and they want to punish the people, because NUG is the only game in town that can upend and their play the junta. Because if you are going to fight this junta with the de facto means, it's a very hard game, I would say, because the military has been the biggest de facto force in the country since the independence. So they knew their game very well. But battling with NUG, and it is not just, like in the physical space that they are battling us. They are battling us in the space of the politics and in the mind of the people, the acceptance, the legitimacy. That is what NUG was, like waging the junta against, because I'm not, like saying, the rest of the revolutionary groups' work and their contribution does not matter. But what I'm saying is like the junta see NUG as the most like dangerous, like game that we are playing, that can upend their dominance and their system. So they knew that, and rightly so. That's why you see their like brutal response, like to NUG control area compared to, like the others, like area. But I think we are in this together, and everybody started realizing that we are forging ahead, and if we turn back, it's it's gonna be worse than like, because the military, although regardless of we often ridicule them about their incompetency or stupidity, but they are an institution. They can always come back stronger. Mm-hmm. Like they can retreat for a while, but they can reinvent themselves and come back. And in order to prevent that, I think like NUG as a rallying point, and like holder of like standards, preacher of federal and democracy and human rights, is still much needed. Like we are like sometimes we are criticized a lot by some groups say we're focusing too much on human rights, but some groups say that we are neglecting like human rights. But the thing is that if you look the journey, the milestone that we have so far, I think like in hindsight, we need to ask the question, what if like NUG has not been dysfunctional, what if? I can definitely say that things could have been a lot worse, or like we could have a lot, we could already in a stalemate situation, just like in the previous revolution that we had before. But now I think we are progressing ahead, yeah, of course, like we have many casualties and difficulties, but I think, you know, we come to a point, you know, like where we keep on and we double down on what works. We will see a breakthrough, because the junta, you know, like he is like selling the idea of like another election, trying to, you know, like sell that to our neighboring countries, to Russia, you know, like to China. But essentially, I think they have never won in the heart of the people. You know, I think the battle is waged, you know, like in the mental space of the people. I think until now, you know, the junta, you know, hasn't, you know, won an inch. You know, people still do not recognize them. You know, maybe people because of the earthquake and because of the economic hardship. You know, but I don't see, you know, like people throwing the towel. You know, like people are still, you know, considering this as a lifelong, you know, like we really need to change the system. You know, there is no other, you know, like option, you know, that are acceptable coming up yet. So this is like strategically, I think we are on the right track. Yeah, we may have some shortcoming in implementation and tactical, you know, move, but I think we are strategically, you know, heading to the right direction.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing some of being an insider from the NUG and speaking to some of the strengths and, in your opinion, some of the positive developments that they've been able to produce in their time. I want to share a couple of the criticisms and challenges I've heard, and then I also want to ask you, in your honest assessment, as far as you're able to speak, what you see as those shortcomings, challenging, frustrations, etc., just so we can have that balanced picture in the understanding and of this platform, really, of the values that we all do better when we're that we all win when we're talking transparently, when we're talking openly. It's not to go after this or that, but that by being able to have an honest and open, critical, transparent conversation, that allows us and our listeners to be able to engage fairly, honestly, and accurately from these different perspectives. And so, a couple of the criticisms I've heard or frustrations, as one Burmese friend put it to me, she said, when I look at the NUG and the military, when I look at the military, I know exactly what they stand for. I know exactly what their message is. In 5 seconds, I can tell you what their message is and what they want to do. When I look at the NUG, I have no idea what they stand for. I don't know what it is they want to do. This is actually a very dynamic and prominent would-be leader that was flirting with joining or supporting the NUG in some degree, and instead, through her frustrations, turned away and has developed her work more independently outside of the NUG structure. And that was largely the reason why, is that she, at the end of the day, she couldn't really get a clear picture of what they stood for, what they wanted to accomplish. Another concern or criticism I've heard is the Zoom meetings, just the endless hours of Zoom meetings that seem to be quibbling over more and more minor points of technical language and policy, while things are burning around them, and feeling that their priorities aren't quite straight in terms of what it is they're trying to do and what the situation is in front of them. Another concern I've heard is, and this goes into ethnic identity, is the Burmanization. And even though there is greater representation in the NUG, and you're one living example of that, than there has been in past times, there have been claims of tokenism for those that are those non-Burmar, non-Buddhists that are involved, and that when you really get down to the leadership structure and decision making, that it's usually back to a bunch of elderly Burmar men who are in the deciding factor, and that the critical conversations aren't so much welcoming those diverse viewpoints in as they could be. Another criticism and challenge, concern that I've heard that's come up is the fact that this is a revolution, and the NUG is very much not a revolutionary group or agency that's leading it, and that they're big, they're bloated, it's wonderful what they're trying to do. When you talk about how they're being funded, and most of the NUG being volunteers or receiving very small stipends, I mean, this is stupendous. Of course, I don't mean to be making unfair criticisms of how hard this work is and how dedicated and how much people have supported it. And as I've said from the outset, I can't think of too many countries that would be able to produce what the NUG has done. And I also fault the international Western countries for how little support they've shown in recognition and legitimacy, and many of them in having their own struggles with visas or being in hiding in Myanmar, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't mean to dismiss any of that. All of that is not just fair, but absolutely critical to understanding this in the proper way. And yet, just because all those things are true doesn't mean that we can't or shouldn't talk about the parts that we might be concerned about or are not working so well. And one of those that I've heard mentioned is that in the midst of a revolution, they're not the vanguard, and there's a sense of bloating and misplaced priorities that are, and ministries that are stretching far and wide, when really there should be a lightweight, minimal structure that is focused on being able to make the most gains, and then once you're in that place, then to be able to expand and be a normal government. But it's kind of like they can't figure out if they're a trying to be a normal government that's displaced or trying to be a revolutionary vanguard. And so they're kind of both or neither is another way it's been put. Going with that Burmanization argument within the NUG itself, I've also heard concerns with how much they're actually engaged with some of the conflict and the contested areas going on. This is another point that's hard to talk about because I know things happen that are not public. I've heard confidentially things I can't share here, and you'll know a lot more than I do about this, about ways that NUG has taken public criticism in certain instances for not being involved when they actually were very much involved, but for various optics and politics that everyone's purposes thought it was a bit safer if they weren't acknowledging what their role was with it. But at the same time, there have also been concerns shared of, going into contested areas that local defense forces have then controlled or ethnics have controlled and trying to administer their own things with it. And this feeling that, well, these are the people that fought and died and are now administering it, and it can feel a bit uncomfortable for someone to then come from the outside and say, okay, now you've secured it, now let us run that. And that also harkens back to older Bamar attitudes of letting others do the fighting and dying and then coming in and taking the gains or the administration. So I feel bad going kind of one blind side after another, and I feel like I might be mistaken as coming with an anti-NUG stance, which is not my intention to do. And just as I got into all these, as I went one after the other, I realized, wow, it really sounds like I'm trying to take down trying to kick a dog that's already not at full health. That's certainly not what I do. I hope you don't think that, and I hope listeners don't think that. And I think we could have a whole episode on just how extraordinary the mere existence of the NUG is and what they're trying to do under the most difficult situations. So I want that to be clear. But I also really do believe that however much you might critically acclaim a person or an organization and acknowledge that, that can't be a cover to not talk about the things where there are those concerns. And the point of this conversation is to talk about them. And so I really want to turn this over to you and have these are things I've heard. They're things that have been said to me. They're things that are out there that I'm sure that are not new to you. And just to get your take on the temperature of these criticisms, if you think some are unfounded or ignorant of certain facts, or if you think some of them are fair game in some way, and again, having this conversation with the aspiration of being able to talk about something with the hopes of, through that honest and critical conversation, looking at where things that can be improved could be improved, to have that motivation of insight. So,
yeah, I mean, that's very fair enough. I mean, this is not uncommon to hear these, conversation that you just had. because we also, like I said, NUG has many characteristics, as a government, like we assume the continuity of the government from the previous one, because we take the mandate of 2020 election, like that has people, like cast their votes. And although we have abolished, like 2008 constitution, but we regard, like 2020 mandate as a legitimate, like people. And of course, why not? Because people has, cast their votes freely, and it was very free and fair, like according to the international standards, and as well as myself, because I myself gone through this election, and I know, like what an election look like, because I myself filed a complaints, like in the UEC tribunal. So I can say that, like this election is systematically free and fair. So the result, like NUG was founded, like because of the mandate of this 2020 election. But at the same time, we also have the popular mandate of the 2021, like revolutions, where it was reinforced by ethnic, consultative, councils, strike committees, labor groups, student unions, activists, NGOs, and revolutionary group as well, such as like NUCC, those are comprised. So when we present ourselves, there is always, like two sides, like that's indistinguishable. Like, so that is also like sometimes very ambiguous, like created an ambiguous situation for NUG, like when it comes to our performance, when it comes to where we are heading. And I think that all comes down to the dual nature of NUG. At one point, we are revolutionary, organizations, because we need to, create a new system, dismantle the old system. But at the same time, we also, carry on with the previous, administration. There are certain policies and continue the form of state, so that we don't show the international, audience that we are disintegrating, as a state. We want to show a kind of unified, entity. So that's the kind of, dual nature of NUG. So because of that, we were criticized sometimes. Like when we should do more revolutionary, when we need to show more revolutionary nature, we were tied up by our like formalities. And sometimes when we wanted to become more when we want to have more system in place, like we want to have a better bureaucracy of administering tax and providing service. At the same time, we were also constrained by the nature of our revolutionary, like where we recruited people, like not out of competence, but out of convenience and out of bravery. Because even at the central level, like at the policy level, the people that we gather are not the smartest people, I must say. But I can assure you they are the bravest people and the most available at that time when the duty calls. So we always have that nature, two nature. So it was also, it was not just from the outsider, even from those inside, we have frustration, like these kind of frustration always abound. Like for instance, if I want to have a policy implemented in terms of natural resource governance, because my theory, my academic experience, my past experience always, wanted me to have some kind of competency in our bureaucracy. But I always have to think about, because when I look back at our, who will actually do the implementation, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough resources, and even the people that we appointed are, like I said, the most available person, not the smartest one, not the most competent one. So I think these little things, sometimes create a bottleneck. There are people, like in NLD who get a position, that they should never get in a normal situation. Like they become like a chokehold and a bottleneck, and that really frustrated people. But for us also, you know, when everything that we're doing has to be, you know, like very mindful of security, very mindful of confidentiality. We cannot just, you know, like some replace people, you know, like just like people wish. We wish, you know, like we could. I also wish like I you know, like stay out of this game. You know, I would be lying if I'm not, you know, thinking that, you know, that entertaining that thought, you know. Everybody in NUG has, you know, I think at least at one point, I think thought about like, okay, that's enough, you know, maybe because we are playing, you know, like the game that we will never get recognized. But on the other hand, what keeps us, you know, like moving is the sacrifice that the people make on the ground, you know, like the young people, you know, like who has bravely fought, and they are not, you know, like mattered by political thoughts or, you know, like this or that, but like they are very pure. Their intention is very pure. They wanted this military out of the politics, you know. So when we are disappointed, myself disappointed, I always, you know, look around and I always find inspiration from people on the ground, you know, like our staff, you know, like who risk their life, because even in natural resource, you know, governance, like we have our staff member killed, you know, on the ground because they are enforcing those, you know, like rules and regulations that are beneficial for the revolution and the management of natural resources. So, and we like, because it's not like NUG, you know, like decree or instruction was well received within its own, you know, bureaucracy. Because, like I said, this is like recruited and joined out of necessity, you know, like not because of, you know, like a corporate, you know, recruiting the best and brightest, you know. So like those who come under the umbrella of NUG, they also have their own, you know, agendas, and they like to use the brand of NUG because they knew that this is the brand that people trust, so they can get more power. Not everyone on the ground has a sincere intention, or there may be power abuse, you know, corruption, but this is just the reality, you know, like that we have to deal with every day. There is not a single day that I haven't seen any complaint letter, you know, like coming to our like signal groups, or, you know, like our email. There is always, you know, like 1, 2, 3, you know, there is always problem, both civil, criminal, you know, corruption, political, all sort of problem. So within NUG, it's not a single entity as well, you know, like we have, that's why we always have a problem of, you know, like competency, you know. You cannot just replace people in NUG just like in a normal government, like where in a normal government, like you always have a discussion in the parliament, and then evaluation, and then, you know, there's always, you know, juggling around position. But NUG is more like a national unity government. It's more like a coalition government, although it was, the majority was, you know, the CRPH endorsed it. But if you look at NUG, the president is not NLD, and, you know, and the I think half of the cabinet members are not from NLD or Burma. You know, they were people like me, independent, or, you know, background from ethnic, you know, academic. So it was the policy deliberation in NUG itself is frustrating even for us. Like it was not like a strong man or a strong party, you know, like leading the whole thing. It's no. Even in NUG, you know, yeah, like people from NLD background may have like important positions, but they are not entirely making the whole decision themselves. They can't, because we have a collective, like decision-making mechanism. Sometimes it is not very optimal. We know that. That's why we have a lot of issues with projecting like where NUG and what NUG really is, because we are a collection of like revolutionary groups and also the representation, like mainstream representation. So I think that many people did not realize these policy deliberation within NUG. I myself also, like I have many policy proposals. I have to be incredibly tactful and incredibly mindful of, what I propose and how I support, enough consensus, to put forward the policy that I wanted to see. So it's and it's also not static, The rules within NUG are also evolving, and we are always susceptible to public pressure, and people just thought that NUG didn't listen. No, that's not true. Like the amount of information we share ourselves, we share funny things, we share, like satire, critical, and many people think that we are out of touch. That's also that couldn't be farther from true, because we have a direct line, like reporting from people working on the ground. So sometimes we may have more information than people like who sift their primary information through news or like social media, because for us, like we never judge or we never decide a situation just based on one source of like information. We always have to verify like from different sources, and we could do that because we have these mechanisms like on the ground who are willing to work for NUG, because NUG represent the hope of the people, and I that very nature, I think, because we are a collective people, and no one group is dominating like NUG. Sometimes that when we project the image, it is also because even within NUG we complain a lot. People do not know. We debate a lot. It's not like everybody is agreeing with like everyone. No, we complain a lot, and like we fought, and but we fought not because of that we are proud, but we thought that like for the best of people have different perspectives, and like I said, we are a coalition, more like a coalition government. So our policy deliberation is different from the normal government. So I think these all add up to this frustration. But we are definitely trying to make our message clear. But in terms of like the message, I think the NUG goal is very clear. One is like to topple the military dictatorship and to establish the federal democracy. I think that is the whole essence of like NUG, and whatever we do, we always reference to FDC. So this is what we are doing. Really reflect the principle from the Federal Democratic Charter, and that has been very clear. And in the future also, I think that is where we are heading. And in terms of, I think the Burmanizations, like I said, I am also a Kachin, like a Christian. I'm a minority, clearly. Do I sense that kind of, atmosphere? Somewhat, but not to the point that impede my ability to function. We don't have a muzzle on NUG members. Like we can freely talk, like what we think and where should we head, There is no limit, within NUG or no censorship. Like every member is very free and take up their own initiative. The only problem is like if you bring up some initiative, like you probably are the person who need to carry on with the implementation because of the like resources, But I think we are now becoming more consolidated. And also I think because like I said, we have based a part of our government on the 2020 mandate. So I think it was also natural that you have NLD members, like in NUG because the majority of the people, like has cast a vote for them. So they will play a role in NUG. I think that is where people, like wanted to see. They may need to, like come up with a better proposal, like because what is not helpful to NUG is also like a very vague and like general suggestion, because we are also aware of like our own situation, very vague, and most of the like senior members are also trying very hard, and I mean I wouldn't say sacrifice, because everybody sacrificed to some extent, like in this revolution everyone have their own like suffering, but as an insider, I see incredible dedication and commitment, like from most of the members, and I think it comes down to like some of those, like the being more transparent and communicative. We have fallen short of that because of the nature of the revolution, and also the expectation. And yeah, I basically think that will we be able to do better? Yeah, definitely. Like we have room for improvement, but in terms of like things that we have missed. Should we be, like really regretful, or like should we be really sorrow? No, I think most of the members have done everything, like that they could in their own capacities. Some of the challenges are structural constraints. That some of them are not, not in our control. What within our control, like I think NUG, we were quite diligent, I would say, but there is always room for improvement. But in terms of like the bloated, ministries, yeah, of course, like it's a very a valid, point, but I would say it does not impede, or it does not interfere with the core function of NUG. Can we have a slim government? yeah, we can have a slim government and more, focus. But will it change the result that we have right now? I don't think so. I think the achievement that we have, the result that we have no, relations to the size of the ministry, because like having, like for instance, having this kind of structure even give us advantage in, like separating some of the function of the government, such as like the in terms of principle, like we try to separate the money and the business from the military side of the government. So having like these ministry and policy in place, especially I think we have a structural segregation so that our military will not be just like the junta military, who is always embroiled in these kind of money and business side. So from the beginning, I think that helps a lot. Of course, it's not easy. Like when you have guns, money, power. These things has always need to be in always check and balance. Otherwise, people are always corruptible. But having these kind of like ministerial approach, really, I think have an internal check and balance for NUG in terms of human rights, standards and judiciary, and also like in terms of business and taxation. PDF were like detached from these kind of things, and they receive money through our like official channel as much as we could. Of course, there are always deviation, but at least we have a structure, like that has separate these kind of systemic, conflict of interest.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer, and thank you for this whole conversation covering this wide range of subjects. I hope that we can talk a third time before so many years pass again.
I mean, I'm really grateful for these opportunities, like to talk to you and share my personal, like journey, and also my healing process, and as well as my participations in NUG. I know my privilege, like because the reason that I'm alive is because I have some privileges, like that others don't, because I knew many from NLD or other, organization that have died, of cancer, they do not get any medical help, that they need, and also like I am incredibly thankful that I can participate in NUG in a meaningful way, so I have access to what is going on with the revolution, so I have reason to always hopeful amidst all these depressing like news. So, and also, yeah, I mean, through this like meditation, breathing exercise, I think my perspective become clearer. So, and also I knew like many like listener or like inside or outside Myanmar, these 4 years is the most difficult years, and nobody is happy and everybody is sad or depressed. But we must continue. So because that's the right thing to do. So in doing so, I think maybe I would like to encourage people who are very depressed like me in the past, try breathing regularly as a meditation. I think at least it will give you some rest and clarity of mind, and give you energies, like to really fight for the people, like who does not have voice, and establish a system, like that is equitable, prosperous, and not discriminating in the future. And but in terms of like what we should do, for like, because we will always have like daily struggle, but in that situation, I just like to encourage, to live every day, like to live every day mean like living in the present. I now realize the powerful, like perception, like living every day. What does it mean, like to live every day? So with that, based on my experience, I hope that helps for those who are in the situation, like me, and to continue the incredible work, like that each one of you are doing, because this is not just NUG work. This is, like our collective, kind of like collective fate, I would say. It's we're in this together, and I truly believe that we can conquer this together, and like this is not just someone else's duty. This is a duty that has been given to us, and we're not alone. And I hope like from my lessons, personal lessons, I hope these kind of tools will be useful to anyone who is weary and who is really needed. I know that this is not for everyone. There are always time, and I know there's a time for everything, and when the time comes, just use these kind of like lessons that I have been through and make available by sharing in this podcast, and I hope to see everyone in Myanmar, and also like again we'll be able to meet again in this podcast platform again for the third time with victory.
In a world where Myanmar's crisis has largely faded from the headlines, critical voices and perspectives are often left unheard. And that's where we hope to come in. Through this humble platform, we're trying to provide something unique, an opportunity to share important experiences, insights, struggles, and perspectives in depth and in a way that few other media sources offer. Our content not only keeps the sputtering global conversation about Myanmar alive, but it also brings much needed attention to those now fighting for their freedom and dignity. So if you value this work and the perspectives we're offering, please consider supporting us. Your contributions help us to continue to amplify those voices and provide the world with the coverage Myanmar so desperately deserves. Visit insightmyanmar.org/donation to stand with us.
punya bisayo. Pada bayaran angkaya punya nada duya dalam dari ganeza di mana wigara bisaya anda bisayo. Oh bayaran anda dayaran nangana yaran pada bayaran anda.